Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hello and welcome back. My name is Avrum Rosensweig, and I'm delighted to be here. And I'm happy that you are viewing the show and listening to it. I am deeply, deeply honored to be doing the show today, and have as my guest the very honorable Phil Fontaine. How are you, Phil?
Very well, thank you.
You look very dapper. I love your hat. Great.
I thank you. I love my hat as well. Yes, I wear it all the time.
You look great. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you're hiding under a rock and you've never heard of Phil Fontaine, to come out of that rock, because Phil Fontaine is a very, very auspicious and a very important Canadian and world figure. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Phil is a prominent Canadian Indigenous leader, widely recognized for his work in advancing the rights and welfare of the First Nations people. He was born on December 8th, 1944 in Sagink First Nation, Manitoba. Fontaine's early life was marked by the challenges faced by many Indigenous communities in Canada and individuals. He emerged as a key figure in the fight for Indigenous rights through his roles in various leadership positions. Phil's most notable role was as the National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, a position that he held from 1997 to the year 2000, and then again in 2003 to 2006. During his tenure, he played a pivotal role in negotiating the landmark settlement of the Canadian government's residential school system, which aimed to address the profound impacts of these institutions on Indigenous communities. His advocacy and leadership extended beyond the Assembly of First Nations, as he was instrumental in fostering dialogue between Indigenous groups and the Canadian government. Phil's efforts helped to bring issues such as land rights, treaty obligations, and self-governance to the forefronts of national conversation. In addition to his work with the AFN, Phil has been involved with various organizations and initiatives aimed at improving the social and economic conditions of Indigenous peoples. His contributions have earned him widespread respect and recognition, including several honorary degrees and awards. That is quite the resume, and that's only a piece of it. So, Phil, thank you for joining me. I'm really, really honored. I was walking around the house this morning, and I think about my interviews prior to them, and I thought, I am interviewing Phil Fontaine today. And that is a great score. I was just so excited about it. So excited.
It's an opportunity, a real opportunity for me. I'm extremely honored to be on the show, Avrum.
Thank you.
We've been working on this for a while, and we finally did it.
So, yeah, we're finally here. Yeah. Where are you, by the way, right now?
I'm in Nelson, British Columbia. We come here during summer months, and we've been here for we've been coming for a long time, and so we got married here.
Oh, congrats.
We live by the lake, and it's a beautiful place.
You have 2 children, right? 7 grandchildren or 8?
Son, Mike has 3 boys. Maya has 4 girls. 7, yeah.
Are you a good grandfather?
I think I'm the best
in the world.
In the entire world.
What makes you the best
world? But don't forget, I occupy a small world now. So I love them dearly, and they love their Michon.
Are you in fact in a smaller place now in your life? I mean, you were on the front. You were in the front of a Canadian stage for many, many years, and in fact, one could argue worldwide. As you've gotten older, has your world shrunk a little bit?
In some areas, it has. I'm no longer a political figure. as such, but I'm very involved in a number of Indigenous related issues, more particularly to do with land claims and negotiating the settlement of various land related issues in different parts of the country, and that that keeps us busy. I have a small team. I don't run my company. The one I created, the Shkonig, my son Mike does, and it's not a large company, but it's pretty diverse in its smallness. We have economists, we have lawyers, and we have generalists like Mike and I, and so we uh, we uh, we spend a lot of time trying to figure out uh, the best process to establish a just and fair resolution to these claims, and we're involved in one that's as complicated as I've been involved in for some time, and it's
What makes it complicated?
well, because we're dealing with history, we're dealing with the past, we're dealing with time that's gone on, and the community that we're dealing with isn't the same as it was when they signed treaty in 1874.
Mhm.
And what happened to them not long after the coming into force of Treaty Number 4 is that they lost their land. The government proceeded to illegally amalgamate them with another community beside them, and they lost agency, they lost their identity, they everything that they were was submerged into this new company that had been a new community that was created by Canada. And so we're trying to, after a federal uh, uh, federal court decision that said this is illegal, they were treated unfairly, unjustly, and they have all of the rights that belong to a treaty nation. And it so happens that legally, as far as the Indian Act is concerned and how it's administered, this is the only First Nation community that is so designated legally a treaty nation. So we're trying to define what that actually means in terms of governance related matters, in terms of honoring in to the fullest extent possible what that means to have treaty rights and what are those rights, and what is Canada, uh, what are Canada's obligations legally, morally, and importantly at this stage financially.
Mhm.
We're talking about compensation,
Mhm.
and of course we've encountered some stiff resistance from Canada, and there's been a bit of a break. We see some daylight now uh, in this matter because of the minister that we have uh, who's been working with us in a very open and trusting way. Minister Gary, I can never pronounce his name, by the way.
I think it's scary. Yeah.
Yeah, Minister Gary is his first name. Got another name. His
I
last
don't.
name. The fellow. I mean, he's been great. And we on the other side, we've worked with Minister Paddy Idu, and I was involved in bringing forward the water file that had been uh, quite a difficult process, and we managed to structure uh, a proposal to the Canadian government, and it's now and it was accepted by officials and the minister, and it's now in second reading. So it goes to committee when Parliament resumes sitting. So that's another biggie.
Phil, when did you manage to get past the heartbreak of having to negotiate these things, or have you gotten past the heartbreak?
Well, the point you're making here is an important one, and it has to do with being open, trusting enough to sit and talk and negotiate with federal government officials and others, and trying to do the best job possible for the people you're representing. And if your decision making and advice that's required from time to time was clouded by these notions and experiences of heartbreak uh, and uh, and all of what that means for individuals, that includes myself. I mean, if the darkness were to cloud the work we're doing, we could never get it done in a good way. And so you put that all that aside and concentrate on the work ahead. And I mean, in some ways, I'm older now. I've moved on to some extent, um, and I don't think it would be healthy to be consumed by the negative past.
You actually said in an interview that you did in Rome just prior to meeting with the Pope, you said, "I've gotten past my anger," and I thought that was highly significant because you have a lot of reasons to be angry. You yourself went to a residential school, and in a number of different interviews which I watched, you said that I think of the 33 boys in your class, including yourself, all or most of them had been sexually abused. That's a lot to get over, isn't it?
Well, it's a true story. Uh, in terms of the abuse, it's each person, each individual boy involved in the experience wasn't abused in the same way, but they were abused. That the approach was the same for all of us,
Yeah.
and the words were the same, and the consequences, of course, were different. Right? We dealt with each of us dealt with this experience differently, and I had to contend with my experience, and uh, yeah, I, it was troubling. But does that mean I have to be angry all the rest of my life? No, I don't think I was. If I was, I wouldn't be fair to myself. I wouldn't be fair to the people I had to deal with in 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 my life, including those of these that worked in the schools. And I certainly wouldn't be fair to my family. And you can talk to my grandchildren, and they will tell you that they've never come across uh, an angry grandfather, an
Is it
angry
a
Mishum.
is a lot of that that you've gone through in order to make yourself healthier? Is a lot of it from humor? Because you make me laugh. We had a great breakfast in Winnipeg, and I just remember laughing. Like you take life in its stride, I believe.
My grandkids think I'm a funny guy.
Yeah, you
You
are
know,
very funny.
and they think I'm a funny guy. I make them laugh. My granddaughters that are the eldest that are in New York, one in law school, the other working with Bob Ray, uh, love my sense of humor. And one of my nephews, the oldest uh, grandchild of my mom's, thinks my humor is off the wall kind of humor.
Do you have any
And
good jokes for us?
at the moment, no. But
Okay,
once the camera is off, we might
you,
talk.
you will.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the residential schools. They were established in Canada in the 19th century and operated until the late 20th century. They were part of a broader policy aimed at assimilating Indigenous peoples into Euro-Canadian culture. The phenomenal thing is, the strange thing, the bizarre thing, is that they were run by the Christian churches, including Catholic, Anglican, Methodist, and Presbyterian churches, but they were funded and regulated by the Canadian federal government. The idea behind the residential schools, and this is a pockmark on the body and character of Canada, was to forcibly remove from their families Native children and to take out of them their Native culture. Phil, in the wee hours of the night, when you're thinking about life and you're thinking about who you are, humankind and our behavior, what have you come to grips with in terms of how the church, as a quote unquote holy institution, together with our government, a democracy, able to have established residential schools whose goal was to remove Native culture from these children, and did so in the most abusive of manners?
Well, our world was changing in a fundamental way, especially those that lived off the land, and that was a large percentage of our people, particularly in the West. I mean, the buffalo was dying out. Beavers weren't. The beaver wasn't as plentiful as it had been one time at the height of the Hudson's Bay experience, and our people were generally poor, and so treaties were one thing. The treaties offered us what was supposed to be which was supposed to be security for our lives, right? That means all of our people and the coming generations. But Canada realized that on one hand, they wanted to civilize, so-called, the land. They wanted to civilize the people, and land was central to that process. And in the West, they had to ensure that our people became more sedentary, not nomadic, as they would argue we were. And the days of the buffalo hunt were gone, and the Hudson's Bay had been bought out by the Canadian government, and it was all about settlement. It was all about bringing settlers from various parts of the world to settle the land, which was still our land in spite of the treaties. In the West, it was the numbered treaties 1 to 11. And so, what was the most effective way in the mind of the Canadian officials to ensure settlement by our people, to ensure that they stayed to their on the land that they were uh, given, so-called, by Canada, was education. And our people knew the value of education. In the treaty negotiations, they insisted on a schoolhouse. Each treaty had reference to a schoolhouse. A schoolhouse was everything that the schoolhouse represented everything education was at that point. And as our people said, education ensured that they would acquire the cunning of the white man. And the cunning of the white man was simply the ability to read and write. And so they took that a step further. The schoolhouse became the residential school. Whether it was run by the Catholic Church or the United Church, Anglican, Presbyterian, and very early on the Wesleyan Methodist, that the residential school became the vehicle to ensure that we settle on the land, that we no longer were dependent on the hunt for our survival, and that education would create a path forward for our people. And the idea there, as Duncan Campbell Scott said, the most senior official for many years for our people in the Canadian government, was to kill the Indian and the child,
Yes.
and to remove the savage from their environment, and to create a new person, in effect, not one that was a savage, but one that was like the white man. And it didn't work. Didn't work because you can't treat the people the way they treated us and expect that we would adopt everything that we were told was good for us, and that we would be, in fact, become like the white man. And uh, for the longest time, our people suffered the consequences of that approach. And it was only in recent years that we've emerged from that darkness, if I can put it that way, not to be dramatic. And we've assumed our proper place in society. What does that mean? Well, it means that we become really successful with education. We've become successful with business. You know, we're a large part of the Canadian economy. We become really political. Just look at Manitoba, Premier Wab Kino, and before him, Premier John Norquay.
Yes.
But Wab is us now, right? In the total sense of the word, he's a terrific role model for all of our peoples.
And he's a
And
fine
so,
he's a fine writer as well.
oh yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And he was a rapper.
Yes, he was.
He was a lot of things in the past, but now he's very much a leader. He's the premier, and he's the most popular premier in the country.
Yeah.
And he's got lots of smarts. He's a thinker, and he's got a very broad view of the world, and that view or perspective is very much about our people. And we've been inspired by Wab. But so you have that, and we're trying to foster a new relationship, as I mentioned when I was in Rome to meet with the delegation, to meet with uh, Pope Francis, to foster a new relationship with the Christian churches, in particular at that moment, the Catholic Church.
Yes.
That relationship had been fractured. And the apology from the Pope meant that we could take these very important but tentative steps to create this very important relationship that is necessary, in my view. And then when he traveled across Canada on his pilgrimage, he had promised us that he would apologize on our soil, in our communities, and he did. And
In,
then
in
after
Edmonton.
Edmonton, Musquecheese, and then on the way back to Rome on the plane, he talked about the doctrine of discovery. No. He talked about genocide. He went further than our political leaders in Canada had been prepared to speak about our experience as genocide, right? They talked about cultural genocide. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada, McLaughlin, talked about cultural genocide. Mr. Paul Martin talked about cultural genocide. The Pope spoke about genocide. And big difference, right? Cultural genocide has no legal sort of foundation to it. I might be wrong, I'm not a lawyer, but genocide can be prosecuted, right? It's a legal matter. And then he had also told us that when he returned to Rome, they would give careful study to the issue of this issue of doctrine of discovery. And they came back with a statement not long after his return, that rescinded the doctrine of discovery. And keep in mind, they had done so a number of times. The problem we have with the doctrine of discovery is that it's embedded in Canadian law and certainly embedded in the US. So what are you going to do with that?
Do you want to explain what it is, Phil?
The doctrine of this discovery essentially allowed the people that were coming into these new lands, as far as they're concerned, to take up whatever land that they saw and to dispose of the people that occupied the land in some ways in a very cruel way. And that was sanctioned by the Catholic Church, the popes. And they were, I mean, the Catholic Church back then, not that it's lesser now, was a very, very powerful institution. And so they were granted this this right. The Portuguese, the Spanish, the Spaniards, French, English. Well, I don't know about the English; they're Anglican, but French to not just conquer the land, but to, in effect, destroy the people that occupy these lands.
Yes.
I might be overstating it. I hope I am.
Are you yourself Christian?
I was baptized Catholic. I was raised Catholic. I attended 2 Catholic-run residential schools, and I'm a nominal Catholic, as some would say. I'm not. I make an effort to relate to the Catholics I know, especially in significant positions, influential, powerful folks, in a very respectful way. And each of us now, because we have we each have our institutions. These institutions have to cooperate, have to get along, have to move forward, each at our own pace, each with our own interests, each with our own rights and sense of morality. And we can't be forever fighting each other.
No, I get that. My question, however, is one would think at first blush, I've met many Native Canadians who are Christians, and I often ask them, as I will you, how is it that one could be, a Native Canadian could be a Christian, knowing all the suffering that the church caused?
This is not to suggest that you turn a blind eye to these atrocities, if you will, or forget that all these awful things happen. But you have to have the strength, the inner resolve to move ahead without rancor, without anger, and to create a better life for yourself and the people that come after you. And in Cripe, it's still not easy being Indigenous, being a First Nation person. It's still a very tough road ahead of us. You know, it hasn't been easy for 200-300 years. We're better equipped today to travel this road, absolutely. But there's still major impediments and obstacles. All I have to do is point to this major landfill search that's underway in Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. The recent discovery out west, this issue of unmarked graves will continue to plague us for some time. And so our efforts at reconciliation are to some to some extent compromised by all of befalls our people. Here I'm talking about poverty, high unemployment rates, a disproportionate rate at which our people are jailed, poor access to safe drinking water, an education system that still doesn't give us our just due, right, for being who we are, in spite of all of what I said about all of the success stories. And most importantly for me, at this stage of my life, I'd feel so empowered if Canada were to move ahead in terms of recognition, to recognize our peoples as one of the founding peoples of Canada, not just the English or French, but the First Peoples. And so we would then together fix the distortion in Canadian history, the story of how we came to be Canada, right? And we didn't have a seat at the table at the Confederation. So when they were divvying up the spoils, of course, we were an afterthought at best, and we were our ability to govern ourselves in the way that the other two founding nations were able to do was taken away from us. The Indian Act was introduced, residential schools came to be, and treaties were negotiated. Well, there are some that, of course, that are pre-Confederation treaties, a whole number that are post-Confederation treaties, and our agency was removed from us, and so it's been a real struggle, but we're, as I said, better equipped today than ever before to do right by ourselves and the country. But Canada must be big enough to give us due recognition for who we are and what we were able to foster in terms of Canada's drive to become a nation. And it can't be built on lies. So we can't keep on saying that Canada was founded by two founding nations, the French and the English. It must include the First Peoples. And then we can begin writing the true history of Canada. And that would be as meaningful a step that we could take together.
Phil, one of the things that I've always found about you is that I think you define what a leader is in my mind in the best possible way. You're very generous of spirit. You're highly diplomatic. You're able to see both sides of the divide, even though clearly, you put your soul and your heart together with the Indigenous people, the Native people, but you also see yourself as a Canadian. I'm curious, how much of this gift that you have came from your mom and dad, Jean-Baptiste Fontaine and Agnes Mary Spence? What were they like, your parents?
They're lovely people. Of course, we like to look at our parents as
perfect.
We put them on a pedestal.
We do,
right? And it so happens that we lost our father when my first year of residential school, and so our mother became both mom and dad, in effect. And
12 children.
10 were around when our father died in 1952, February 19, and our mother never remarried. And we were fortunate in the in the days after our dad died that he had left us he had life insurance policy. So he left us some money, right? And he had worked in the pulp and paper mill. And we had we had a garden, we had a team of horses, we had cattle and whatnot. And so we were able to live a pretty decent life. But when the money ran out, we became poor, really poor. And I attribute whatever success that we as a family were able to achieve to our mother. And I've said this before, by the way, Avrum. In some situations, I admit that I have to be fair. That if it wasn't for the residential school being on the reserve there, where we had 3 squares a day, and we had a place to sleep, showers, and so on and so forth. I'm really grateful for their presence at those very difficult moments in the life of our family, and so I have to try and establish some balance, give some balance to those experiences that you and I talked about earlier in this podcast, and what was possible because of their presence in the community. And yeah, it was. But you had the Indian agent, and a lot of them were not the most generous people.
to say the least.
Yeah.
Do you have
Yeah.
memories of your dad?
Oh, I do.
Tell us
I
about it.
do. Well, he was a hardworking guy. He worked in the pulp mill, and I remember going with him, and I was part of the family going on sleigh, horse and sleigh, to visit our grandparents on the other side of the river. On the north side of the reserve, going to church, sleigh. But we also had a car, right? But sometimes it is easier to use the horses, the team of
Sleigh, yeah.
horses.
Yeah.
Yeah, this way. And one time they broke through the ice when my mom and I and my younger sister was a baby. We were going to go to church and visit my brothers in school, and the horses broke through the ice. And
Oh,
our dad took us up the bank to Alexander's, the old Joe and Sarah Alexander's house, to wait for him. And I don't know what he did, but he got the horses out of this situation. And
yeah.
he came up and said, "We can go, we can go." And so we carried on to the school to visit our brothers.
Did you have
So,
private time with your dad?
well, God, I was the youngest guy, so uh, I was I could be a nuisance.
I
Right? And
imagine.
we had a big house on the reserve, so we had relatives that lived with us, and Uncle Charlie, my dad's older brother, and his boys used to be, used to live with us, and so I have fond memories of Uncle Charlie, and I used to also go down to the river, to the watering hole with Avrum. Avrum was my dad's uncle, who'd
Yeah.
been in an institution for, as they called them then, sanatorium for crazy people. I don't know what the actual name, but my dad got him out of there, and he came to live with us. So he'd take the cows down the bank, right? And he had a big, he'd cut a hole, watering hole, and I'd go down with him. And sometimes, one time actually, he got tired of this bloody task, and he tried to make a bigger hole and shove one of the calves down. And my dad's cousin was up on the riverbank watching this and yelled at him. So so the yeah, it was a funny thing. And I was there. I didn't know what the hell he was doing, Avrum. He was an old man. And
Was he crazy?
no, he wasn't. He was just slow.
He was slow.
And he in the summer, he loved to sit by the with his back to the house outside. We had brick siding. We didn't have real bricks, but brick siding. They'd get really nice and hot in the sun.
Yeah.
So I'd sit with him, and he loved his pipe. So he'd be sitting there. I'd be beside him, and he'd be smoking his pipe.
You remember the smell of the pipe, Phil?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, the tobacco.
and oh yes, and we had to make sure that Avrum had his tin of tobacco.
Yes.
Otherwise, he'd get really. I wouldn't say cranky, but we knew he needed that, and so that was one of the priorities whenever we'd go shopping. For when we'd go grocery shopping, we had to have tobacco for Avrum.
What was Agnes Mary Spence, your mom, like? What sort of person was she?
Jesus, man, I have so many stories about my mom. She
Yeah,
was
tell her something. Tell us something.
tough as nails.
She was tough,
I
eh?
mean, oh gosh, yeah, especially with authority. One time, I've told this story a number of times. The hydro man, we had the waterman, the hydro man, and they'd come on the reserve. The waterman would deliver water, and you had to, our people had to pay for water. And
Yes.
we had a river that flew right through the reserve. We couldn't use the water for drinking. At best, we'd use it for washing our clothes. And we'd go with our mother down to the river, and we'd with our wash tubs, and we'd make a fire, heat up the water, and my mom had a wash tub. But we'd come on to having electricity, and you have to pay your electric bills, right? Your hydro bills, as we call them. And the hydro man came around one time, and we were behind. My mom was behind in her payments, and these guys, the hydro guy, had all of the equipment on him, and he had these boats that he could walk up the hydro pole, and said, "I'm going to have to cut you off, Mrs. Fontaine." So he climbed up, and in those days, nothing was computerized, so everything was manual, and he did whatever he had to do to cut off the power. My mom had gone into the house and got a broom, and she stood at the bottom of the hydro pool. And the guy looked down and he said, "Oh, Christ." Probably said to himself, "Oh, Christ, I'm not going to tangle with this woman." He went back
Not
up
worth it.
and reconnected our hydro lines and got down and said, "Everything's good, Mrs. Fontaine," and left.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We're all good.
Yeah, we're all good here.
How was she
That
with
was
all
just,
the kids in the house and the uncles,
oh
extended
man, oh man.
family? How many people were in your home?
Well, we all lived at home, and we had relatives. And so my mom had to prepare all the food, and so that everyone had a place at the table. Not that we essentially ate in shifts. And she used to work in town.
Yeah.
She was as a cleaning lady. So many of the reserve women did that. And I think when she started, the top wage was $3 a day.
A day.
And so she walked to work town. She was friends with a number of the women that she cleaned for, and but it was not an easy thing to do, and but she was just one of many on the reserve that did that. Women,
Was she a good cook, your mom?
oh, the best in
Was she?
the land. I
What
mean,
did,
gosh.
what did she cook? What kind of food did you eat?
Well, one of her favorites, and at Christmas, a lot of people came to her to ask her to prepare the pudding, Christmas pudding. Man, and I don't know how many she'd because she'd have to boil the pudding in a bag, right? I forget what you call that bag. Boil them, maybe 3 and 4 at a time, and so she would. I don't know if she sold them. Maybe she did. Maybe she just gave them, and and yeah, and meat pies. The French call them tortilla, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, but and I remember one of the constables, our CMP constables, came by the house to request that my mom uh, prepare meat pie for him
Really?
if she could. Yeah, and she did. So she was great with that. But I mean, a lot of the weddings on the reserve uh, uh, would call on my mother to handle the cooking and big uh, uh, the big Christmas. I mean, the wedding cake. She'd decorate the cake. Different layers. She was just renowned as a terrific cook.
Now, we're speaking of the Sanging First Nation on the Fort Alexander Reserve in Manitoba, which is about 150 kilometers north of Winnipeg, which is beautiful land. I went to visit a reserve north of Winnipeg, and I was up in Kenora. Just, it really is perhaps the most beautiful place in Canada, and Canada is a gorgeous country. Were you hunters? Did you hunt?
Well, my dad and his brothers did. Uncle Charlie was a terrific hunter, and he only had one hand, but he was a marksman, if I can describe him.
Mhm.
He was a terrific hunter, and we snared rabbits. I remember that. I loved eating rabbit. Uh, my dad worked in the mill, but he also set a net. And I went with it one morning when he came back from work. He was on the night shift, so in the morning he'd come to lift his net, and I went out in the boat with him. I mean, we didn't have life jackets or anything, and he had a tub, and he carried the tub of fish up the bank. And we also, this was important to us. My mom would make preserves, so we'd go out as a family to pick raspberries, wild plums, blueberries. For blueberries, we'd have to go off reserve, either Elk Island, which is across Victoria Beach, or to Bel Air, or to Stead. Three places where we would go as a family. We'd set up a tent and we'd stay out there for a couple of weeks. And my mom would then prepare berries, and I mean she did that with meat, fish, but the main source was the berries, and we had a cellar in the lower the kitchen floor.
Do you still go out into the woods and find peace there?
Uh, I did when I was in Winnipeg. When we lived in Winnipeg, I'd go back out and we'd spend the summer. We had a little cottage uh, in Traverse Bay where I had relatives living in the area, and I'd spend a lot of my time when they're ripe picking raspberries by myself, and I'd spend hours picking raspberries. And then when it was time to pick plums, go out and pick plums. But that was I did that all by myself. Yeah.
Do you teach your grandchildren about Native culture?
Uh, I rely on others to do
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
right? And I'm not uh, a deep thinker when it comes to our culture, uh, but there are others that I know that are, and that are terrific teachers. And so uh, most of my grandchildren have their spirit name. and given by an esteemed elder, a dear friend of mine, actually a traditional brother, Fred Kelly, who's performed those customs or rituals, like, you know, giving spirit names to different individuals. He's got he has that quality about him and experience, and so the girls in New York, the one that is in law school and the other that's working for the Canadian Mission, both have their spirit names.
Well, what is your spirit name, may I ask?
This Tigunabe, which is spirit tree, and the one is Kaginebenesi, which is leading bird.
Leading bird?
Yeah, like a thunderbird, but I don't. Yeah, I have two spirit names.
Why the first? Why did you get the first one?
The spirit tree.
Yeah.
Well, I had requested a ceremony, right? And you have to offer tobacco, and I went with two elders, one that ran the sweat. We had a sweat lodge out in the country, and it was a healing sweat, and I had requested this sweat, and so during the course of the sweat, I was given this name, Spirit Tree, and a tree represents a lot of what we are as individuals, whether you're an Indian or Indigenous or non. I mean, we've come to learn that, at least more generally, that trees talk to each other, right? They communicate each other, their roots, and but that was always a part of our culture. There was an understanding that the trees were a central part of our lives.
Yes.
Yeah, and so to carry the name Spirit Tree, I think was an important gift to me.
Your first language was Ojibwe. Do you still speak it at all?
Yeah, I do.
You're
What?
fluent in it?
Pardon?
You're fluent in
Anishinaabe
it?
man, Anishinaabe man, Ojibwe. Yeah, but I don't have many people around me that speak Ojibwe.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and I just lost my brother,
I'm sorry.
Bert. He was 85. Well, it'll be a year uh, this month, and he and I would talk. I mean, this is not an exaggeration. Just about every day
Yeah.
when I'd call him from Calgary, and we'd talk, and he was a wonderful storyteller,
Was he?
funny stories, and we would laugh like you wouldn't believe on these calls.
Yeah.
And most of the conversation was in Ojibwe, or most of the conversations were in Ojibwe. And from time to time, I would ask him and my sister-in-law Terry for translation of a word that I didn't, I didn't have in my head, and so they'd give me that. But most of the stories were about family life on the reserve growing up, and characters that he had encountered or I had encountered, and different interesting, funny moments. Like he was a little guy and wiry, I should say, and he was working with Ontario Hydro in the Kenora area after he got out of res school. And there was a circus in town, and people were there was a bear, wrestling bear, And so he had to pay money to wrestle the bear. I mean, that was the deal.
You had to pay
And
for it. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, the bear was clawed, declawed, and this, this couldn't bite. I asked him how the bear was. He said, "Christ, he was strong." You know,
An understatement.
yeah,
That was a
Christ, he
strong
was strong.
bear.
Right? Yeah, not I. He didn't say. I used the wrong word. Cripe, he was strong, is what he said. I apologize for saying
How many
the other
siblings?
way.
How many siblings do you still have?
I'm the last man standing ever.
You're the last one.
Yeah, I
How
just
does?
lost my two younger sisters recently, and
I'm so
Bert
sorry.
was the last one, and they're all gone except for myself.
What's that like for you?
But cripe, I miss my family. I really miss them. I especially miss Bert. Right, uh, we were pretty close, but I miss them all, man. Yeah, I do miss our mother, and I miss the memories of our father,
Yeah.
truly, and you know that's just the way my life went,
Will you see them again?
or unfolded, and that's it.
Will you see them again, Phil?
Uh, I think about them. I think about them, and I see them in the memories I have about them. Uh, but we're star people, right? We're considered star people. As you know, Avrum, everyone is made up of the elements of the stars. All of us, whether
Yes.
wherever you come from, your humans are made up of the elements of the stars. So when one passes, you return to the stars, and whether you ever meet them again, and it's I think you want to be reassured that life is not for naught, right? That life is just, you're born and you die. That's it. People have to have reason to live, and for many, it's about once their loved ones pass on, that they'll meet somewhere uh, along the path up there somewhere. I mean, our people talk about they're gone to a good place, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
They're gone to a good place. They never describe the good place, obviously. Who can? Uh, it's it's a notion we have, and people talk about the spirit world, and different people have each an understanding what that means. Uh, I'm not a I have to admit I'm not a deep thinker when it comes to that, and whether I ever will see them again, who knows? Am I anxious to come to that point? No, I'm still I still want to live, and I'm trying to live as best I can.
Are you really clear on what your purpose is in life?
Well, I've been afforded so many opportunities to do uh, to work on behalf of the First Nation community and Canadians generally. My goodness, what we do as First Nations people is about the rest of the country. For example, writing the wrongs related to history, the
Yes.
distortion of history. Well, writing the true history of Canada is about Canadians. It's about making sure that Canadians understand their country, and in the process understand themselves a lot better than they've had the opportunity to do so. And so You know, I've been fortunate. I've been lucky uh, to um, to be engaged as I've been in tackling some of the toughest issues in our that and challenges that have faced our community. Was that because I was some great intellect or uh, deep thinker or philosopher? No, not a chance. I was just in the right place at the right time, and I did the best I could, and that's it. Uh, I mean, no no one. I've never put myself on that kind of pedestal. I mean, there are so many people that are, that occupy uh, special places in our lives, and I'm certainly not one of those. But I'm around and to do my. I still work to do my fair share of moving things ahead, advancing our people's interests.
Throughout your journey, throughout your trek in life, has your road often crossed with that of the Jewish people?
Absolutely, many times. And one of my closest friends, a great supporter in my life, as I said at one time public, I trust him with my life. He's a Jewish uh, lawyer in Winnipeg, Jack
Who is
London.
that?
Jack
Okay.
London.
Yes.
I mean, he's. I can call him. I call on him anytime, right? And he's there for me and my family. And he's uh, he's a pretty special guy.
How did you feel about October 7th, the
Well,
incursion into the southern Israel by Hamas?
well, I don't know if I've been traumatized, but it, what's evolved there? What is this ugly transformation that's taken place there? Too many people have died. Too many, just too many of them, and we we all are witness to the atrocities on both sides, really, and uh, we have to. We hope and pray that there'll be a ceasefire, and I can't articulate this idea that what it means to be indigenous in a place like the Middle East, and to uh, they're Semitic people, most, except for the Persians, who speak a distinct language, Farsi, and they're not Semitic people, and so but the rest are, and in the middle of this, uh, you have the Israeli people, the Israelites, and they go back in time as all peoples there, and so uh, I think I, from what I know and understand about the Middle East, this was a provocative uh, uh, incursion by Hamas, and I think they were willing to sacrifice their people because they knew that the world would be uh, traumatized, if I will, if I could use that expression. And it's been incredibly divisive, and so many people have been hurt. Uh, October 7th should have never happened, obviously. It did. And I don't know about the leadership in Israel. Uh, Hamas is a terrorist organization. Netanyahu, I think, wants to stay out of jail, right? And the longer the crisis persists, the better his chances of staying out of prison are increased. But look, the more I say about this, Avrum, the worse my understanding gets, because there is so much that has gone on there. I mean, the Jewish state has been attacked over time, and I mean they've been scattered to the four directions over time, right? They're everywhere. Ashkenazi Jews, the Hasidic Jews, and the different peoples that make up the Jewish state, the Jewish nation, the Jewish people, and can I ever be fair about my perspective on that situation? I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because I don't know enough about the true history of the peoples there. But one thing I can say with a degree of certainty, that the horrific nature of the conflict there must come to an end. And most of the people that I've heard, important people, speak about that. I think they've said the same thing in much clearer terms than I can articulate.
You've been in Israel, right?
I sure have.
Yeah.
I sure have. And we were there in response to some intemperate remarks by one of our leaders.
Yes.
And so we were invited by the Canadian Jewish Congress.
Yes.
To visit Israel and to see for ourselves what it looks like there, and what the people are like, and what it is they do to sustain themselves, to protect themselves. We were taken to a Bedouin community. Those people live the way they lived 2,000 years ago. And it was, we went to Yad Vashem. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yes, Yad Vashem.
Yes.
The Holocaust Museum. Yes.
Yes, it was a powerful moment for the delegation. Incredible. And we went to visit the president of Israel. We stayed in a kibbutz our last night in Israel. And you could see, I don't know now what country we'd see it just across the way. Was it Jordan?
Probably Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan. Yeah.
Yes.
Jeez. Yeah. And Jordan is an ally of Israel.
Yes, there's peace between them. Yes.
Yes, or peace. Yeah. So, no, I've known Jewish people since I was a young boy.
Do we get along? Do Jewish people and Native people, do we get along?
Oh, gosh, yeah. I mean, look, these days, for example, one of my good friends, I forgot to mention him, is Dr. Michael Dan in Toronto.
Yes.
He's a dear friend of mine. And his family spent a large part of their lives as a family with Indigenous peoples in northwestern Ontario, right? And they were a large part of the economy there.
Yes.
And yeah, Dr. Michael Dan. And there's a judge now, Ed, was part of the delegation to Israel. Jeez, can't think of his name at the moment.
I think I know who you're referring to.
Yeah,
You know Morris Switzer?
of course.
Yeah, I just interviewed him.
Yeah, he's a half-breed.
He's a half breed. Yes.
Yeah, half Jewish, half Ojibwe,
Yes, he is.
right?
That's correct.
He's an
Yes.
Ojibwe. His grandfather was a chief,
Yeah.
and his dad was his dad a taxi driver?
Something like
One
that.
time.
I can't remember
Yeah.
specifically, but something
Yeah.
like that. Morris is he's a fighter for good, that man.
Yeah, he used to be the was it the publisher or the editor of the Winnipeg Free Press at one
Yes,
time?
he was. That's correct. Publisher, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he worked with me with the Assembly First Nations.
Yeah, right.
We're
I know that.
Switzer. Yeah, and I mean after the Second War, a number of the Aboriginal Indigenous veterans returned to Canada with Jewish wives. I
Interesting.
can't give you exact numbers, but I know that is the case.
Phil, I want to
So-
thank you a lot. I want to thank you a lot for this interview. It was great. It was really great.
I appreciate the opportunity. I'm sorry, the most difficult part of this for me, talking about, and this is due to my lack of understanding and knowledge about the history, about the Middle East. But in my heart, I truly hope that there'll be peace in the land there, and that the latest news that we heard about the ceasefire will come to pass.
Well, I don't think you have to be sorry for anything. I consider you to be our friend, and to me, and it means a lot to our community. So, thank you for that.
It was an honor. Thank you very much, Avrum.
I want to conclude. I should have done this at the beginning of the show. The show just got sponsorship, which is really nice. And it's sponsored by the Professional Center. You can see their website at the bottom. And whether you need a private office away from distractions or a quiet place to meet a client, TPC has it all. They are Toronto's top co-working space at 120 Adelaide, where exceeding expectations is the standard. At TPC, they blend elegance with functionality, providing private offices, fully equipped meeting rooms, and superior service with exceptional views. Choose TPC for more style, more space, more opportunity to exceed. For more information, visit the professionalcenter.com. And if you mention my name, AVRUM, you'll get 10% off private offices and meeting rooms. Basically what they did, Phil, they leased a huge amount of office space, and you can come there and you can lease a small parcel and use it and use their resources. So if you need an administrative assistant, you can use their administrative. It's kind of a cool place, and I'm really happy that they sponsored the show. Anyways, thank you so much. I wish you and your family well, and it's always an absolute delight to be with you. It really is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was a good conversation.
It was a good schmooze, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have to next time we have to go to a deli and carry on the conversation.
I would love to do that. I would love to do it.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening and for watching. We will be back soon. Until then, have a beautiful day, a beautiful week. Shabbat is coming up. Have a great Shabbat. I wish you well. And like they say in Yiddish, sei gesund, be healthy, and go in peace. Do you want to end off with an Ojibwe blessing or?
Angomazin. Be well. Take care.
Be well. Miigwech.
It sounds just like your word. Angomazin, we say.
Yeah.
Way, way in it, which is take care, look after yourself.